Ladies and gentlemen, we have finally got to this point. We either have the biggest Switch 2 leak of all time to cover today, or it's just an incredible fake. But me and the entire internet, and all the analysts, and all the professionals who really know this, are actually leaning towards it being credible. So let's go ahead and get right into this video. Well. It's your move, Nintendo. That's right. We're either looking into the future here, or people are getting even better at faking stuff. So as always, you're going to need to take this with a grain of salt. This leak right here, you might have to take with, I guess, a mountain of salt. I'm not sure. So before we get started, if you could hit a like and subscribe, it would truly mean the world to me. And we're not even going to build up to this. We're not going to cover anything else. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. Photos of Switch 2 factory prototypes have leaked on Chinese website. We have quite a bunch of pictures to look at, and we have a bunch of specs to cover. If these specs right here are real, I'm not even talking about the actual look at this console. This next generation of Nintendo consoles is going to be very exciting. So the first update we had was saying the renders may not be legitimate. It wasn't stated that renders were mock-ups, however the original poster was a 3D modeling enthusiast. So at first they're saying, well, maybe this wasn't real, maybe it was just a mock-up. Then we got another update. A source from FamiBoards is saying the original poster said they obtained a shell model from an accessory manufacturer at great cost. So they probably paid a lot of money to be able to get this so they could leak it out, and maybe there's a financial gain in there somewhere. And reverse designed it to create that model. Therefore, it's not worth writing off the renders as fake quite yet. And at the end of this video, we'll get into a bunch of sources that are actually confirming it's legit. And you know what, let's just start looking at these pictures. So keep in mind, these are renders, but we do have some actual pictures as well, but this is just a render. And essentially, this just looks like our regular Joy-Con, right? When you actually look at the inside of it, you can see a couple different things. For example, let me look at my Joy-Con right here. Right away you notice this rail right here you use to slide onto your Switch, well, that's missing. These little buttons right here, what do we call these? SR and SL, you know, this is how you play Mario Kart and stuff like that. If you don't have like the actual thing that slides on here to make this a single controller, these buttons are very hard to press. These are much larger right here, and that's a great thing. I forgot what the hell it's called, but the thing you slide on to make it a single controller. I wonder if that's going to look exactly the same on this, or is it going to be different? Here's another angle of the Joy-Con, and right here, it looks like it almost turns or dips up a little bit. I guess that's similar to this Joy-Con right here. When you go down it like this side is a little bit lower, but this side is raised up a little bit more. So I'm gonna assume that's what that is, but this one also looks raised up as well. And then there's a slot right here. This is the OG Switch right here. This is the back of the new one, and it looks just like the back of the Switch OLED, which is good because the stand is really nice. So this is the Switch OLED, I'm gonna assume, and they're comparing it to the Switch 2. And it's supposedly only 1 inch bigger, but it actually looks way bigger, I think because maybe the bezels are even smaller, even though they don't look smaller right here. But I have heard reports saying the bezel will be smaller. So an interesting thing about this is there's a USB-C port on the bottom, and I don't know if we have a picture of the top. Yeah, there's one on the top as well. So this will be for charging, and the bottom will be for docking. An interesting thing to look at right here is this is the same exact size slot as the Nintendo Switch. So I'm pretty sure that in itself will probably confirm backwards compatibility. Now what those cards will look like is another story. Now here's where it gets interesting. We actually have a shell of the console. I've read somewhere today that this was all the way back in 2023, and this was the first prototype. I actually have it on my phone. I think I screenshotted it. Give me just 1 second. So what they say is this was a real prototype, but a fairly old one. And this was manufactured in the 40th week of 2023, and that explains why it looks so scuffed up. So even though this is a prototype, this wasn't like the final prototype. And I think the renders that we were seeing were based off this, so it probably will look similar to this if all of this is true. But I think still a little different towards like, okay, this is pretty exciting. It feels like something new when you actually compare it to the Switch. Then we have a couple pictures of the back of the Joy-Con, and it essentially just looks exactly the same. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit bigger and maybe a little bit more comfortable, but yeah, essentially the same Joy-Cons. Here's a bigger picture of the one we've seen earlier, and when you zoom in, it gets pretty interesting because it almost looks like you can put an actual game in there. I don't know why that would happen, if that is a possibility. What would be the reasoning behind that? This is Nintendo, they do weird and wacky stuff. I'm actually a huge fan of these buttons being bigger. I'm assuming because the console is bigger, then these would just be bigger by default, but yeah, it's going to make for a more pleasurable experience playing the game. Here's the shipping list details, and it's just telling you what everything is. So go ahead and feel free to pause this video right now and look at all this. I am not the smartest when it comes to like all these model numbers and knowing what everything is, but yeah, it looks pretty interesting. And we have a few reports that are actually confirming all of this. Gaming Accessory Manufacturer Manager says the Switch 2 leak is real. Yeah, there's not a lot to get into that one, so we'll just continue. VGC corroborates Chinese leaked Nintendo Switch 2 pictures. One of the VGC sources says the Chinese leaked Nintendo Switch 2 pictures matches what they've been told. While the images are unverified, one source who has not seen the final Switch 2 console but has been briefed on Nintendo's plans told VGC that the Reddit images match what the company has told partners to expect from the design. So that's what I'm taking away from this, that this is not what the final design is going to look like. These are prototypes, but this is what you could expect from Nintendo. This is what has leaked out that it's going to look like. So they're just taking all the details and kind of putting it together, and that's what's coming out. It's like you can put those details together 100 different ways and it might come out 100 different ways. So I think that's going to look similar to what it's going to look like, but that flat gray color or that matte black color or whatever you want to call that, that's not going to be the color of this console. I don't think that sells well on a shelf, just an all black console. Now, we did have the charcoal Joy-Cons, I think that's what we called it when the Switch came out. But when you go into your mind right now and you think about the Nintendo Switch launching, it was those red and blue Joy-Cons. That red and blue color was synonymous with the Nintendo Switch. So that black or gray we're seeing is for the prototype. I covered a leak yesterday saying those Joy-Cons were black and white, and I think that would look great on the shelf. Necro Libre Brazil reaffirms that the Switch 2 leak is real. And Necro Libre, a prominent leaker, very big in the gaming industry in Brazil as well. They have leaked tons of games early. I think they leaked Red Dead Redemption for Nintendo Switch early. Just a bunch of stuff. They really have their hand in the industry, so seeing they're confirming this is actually great news. About the leaks, a source of mine, the one who provided me with the RAM memory data between 2022 and 2023, stated that the photo of the leaked hardware is true. Still, we work with caution as the hardware plate dated October 2023, and that's what I was saying earlier. This was a very early prototype. And then here's something to add to it. Liam Robertson, seems a lot of developers got invited to Nintendo of America yesterday. And I don't have it pulled up right here, so forgive me, but all the specs have leaked out as well. Now, even though this console looks perfectly fine, the specs is where it's really going to shine. Allegedly, with the information we have now, it is going to be as strong as a PlayStation 4 handheld, but as strong as a PlayStation 4 Pro docked. That means we are set up for a very exciting generation moving forward. I think they said it has 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. It does only have an LCD screen. The LCD in itself doesn't mean it's bad. There are some LCD screens that look almost as good as an OLED screen. The price is supposed to be $400, so maybe going with an LCD screen is how they can keep that price down, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Things are getting very expensive. If everything we see today is true and nothing more than that, then Nintendo is winning this next generation simply because they're not chasing trends or chasing power. They're just making a console that's going to be a lot of fun to play. If you had to ask me, I would say within 7 days, maybe even as little as 48 hours, we will get some news from Nintendo themselves. In the comments below, as always, let me know what you're thinking. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you could. And you guys know me, I'll see you soon with a new video. Peace out.